Allison Whittenberg, welcome to Writers in Relationship.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's a pleasure. And just also to note that this is also simultaneously being broadcast on Hodgepodge Literature and Arts Substack. So it's a joint production. I always like to start, we don't know each other. This is the first time we've met. Maybe just tell us a little bit about how you came across Hodgepodge and how you first got to get curious about submitting.
Well, I liked your mission statement. I was looking at your website and it just seemed really exciting. I also like the title. So I was interested. I love the covers that you have of the different magazines. So it just looked very, very exciting. And yeah, it seems like you put a lot of work into it. So, and then the only other time we met, it was the sort of a group thing, and I thought that was interesting too, that the editors would get that involved. Because usually it's, you have a typo here or or give us your bio and then we'll just send it on. But it seemed a little bit more holistic and comprehensive. So I was really
Wow,
happy about that.
that's nice to hear. Um, and then which because you responded to an image prompt and that's Emma Two Mannion's which was it the Defender that you
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And what did you like about the image? I'm just curious about that.
I thought it was very immediate and very, very striking. And my rule is if I'm still thinking about it a day or two later, then it really struck me, and that did that for me. So that prompted me to get involved.
Awesome. Well, great. So tell us a little bit about your relationship with your setting. Like, where are you in the world right now?
I am at I'm on Earth, number one, which is always nice, a nice place to be as an Earthling. But I've lived in a couple of different places, always urban. I've never lived in a rural or even a suburban setting. Um, Mostly on the East Coast, but I spent some time in Texas, sometime in Wisconsin and Minneapolis. And I spent a summer in Alaska, which was great. But I'm in Philadelphia presently, and most of my writing is done, even though I have uh, I have about three desks, but most of my writing is done on the kitchen table. I love working in the kitchen. It makes things very, very easy. And actually, I'm not as distracted as when I'm at a desk, because I find with desk there's a lot more to. I don't know if I have my stacks of other things that I'm working on. It's like I like the kitchen table because you always have to clean it off for family and at certain times and certain intervals. So you're not working all day. You're always going to be interrupted. And the kitchen table, I look at that as warmth. I look at that as just it's communal. So that's my favorite place to write. And I always say I'm going to get this type of desk, yeah, and then I'm going to definitely work from the desk all the time. And then I just end up with different desks and end up on the kitchen table again. So
Cool. Like it's really interesting. It reminds me of the thing like when you have a party and everyone's congregating in the kitchen, no matter how small and tight it is, it's like there's something that draws us into that space. That I feel like you're kind of speaking to that a little bit.
yeah, yeah, and I think it's domestic, it's womanly. And I think it just makes me it just makes me happy. And it's not like I'm constantly snacking or drinking or anything. I like to be in the kitchen. It's always the focal point of a house. So
And so you mentioned being primarily in urban areas near in Philadelphia now. Do you feel like the urban landscape is an influence on your writing? And if so, how would that be?
I'd say yes, because I love the people watch, and um, I think just society in whole as a whole has gotten less interesting to people watch because of technology, and a lot of times you can't make eye contact, or people are just looking at their phone, and that's sort of the center, and that's they're not as animated as they used to be. I've definitely noticed a difference, and there just used to be a lot more third space places. I remember there was a place, quite a few places that used to have a live piano player. And you could just go there during lunchtime, during your lunch break, and you could watch someone play the piano. And now I went to something last week, and it was all like a computerized, like an AI piano. They're like it looked like somebody was playing, but nobody was sitting there. And, the lady at the desk, she said, yeah, I just program it and, put in whatever song I want. And I said, that's not the same. And, it used to be, quite nice, but now things are a lot more automated, and, people watching is not as, as interesting, but I still do it a lot. So that's why I prefer it, like a tight knit area. I know like a lot. I like reading other authors who seem like they're in touch with rural, the rural environment, and they know all the plants, and they know everything about that's that animal, that's that. And I was like, I don't know. I'm just more of a, I've always been in the city, so uh, different different cities, but always in the city.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with writing and like how that began and um how it evolved for you.
I think I really fell into it because I loved to read growing up. So I read all the time, and wasn't my first thing that I wanted to do, but I think just by default I ended up doing it. Um, but just a very, very voracious reader. It was and in some ways it was a barrier, I suppose. When you're reading a book, you're like, leave me alone, I'm reading a book. When people used to carry around books, I mean, instead of same thing, looking at their phone. But and it's a way of I would use that in eavesdropping too on conversations or whatever. Like I have the book open, but I'm sort of doing two things at once, multitasking. But I don't think I got a lot of encouragement with my writing, but I still wrote. Every once in a while, I would get a teacher say, "Oh, you really have something here." And I remember, I forget what grade I was in, but I had a teacher who said, "Oh, I'm going to see your name on a book spine one day," and I was like, "Yeah, right." I just, moved on. But I would keep journals, and I would keep notebooks, and I would write. And then when you're really young, you can just write on and on. It streams, reams of, and because you don't really check yourself, and you really don't know what's out there. You know what you like, but you don't know. You think, oh, I'm the first person who thought of that. Let me write it down. So there's a lot of enthusiasm, but just getting things published here and there. I think the first time I got something published, I was 13. So I got something in a literary magazine. And then, sporadically, and then it picked up when I was, when I was in my 20s. And then it dropped off again when I started my family. And then it picked up again now that my family's older. So, I just, rode the whole wave of things. But, I've always read. so much more than I write. And I just as I said, like a lot of times I didn't get into reading reviews until like this last go around of writing. I think if I was reading reviews early on when I was reading, I think that would have guided me in different directions, if that makes any sense. And there's all these forums now. So it's not even people that you know you're talking to about the book. It's like anybody is out there and it's just like so when I hear about a book, sometimes I do preface it by reading reviews and things like that. So I think that kind of works backwards in a lot of ways. And also, I love reading literary magazines because there are so many finds, and I like dog earing. Oh, I like that one. I like that one. I like looking at how they arranged it. And I've been in quite a few magazines, so it's always nice to see where you are, how you fit in it, what their thought was with it. Um, so I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, totally, totally. It's fascinating to
Okay.
hear. And you're very you write such a wide variety of things. You've written plays and short stories and novels and poems and like what's your do you have a favorite genre that you love to write or like what do you like about each of them? Maybe that's a better question.
Oh, okay. I think, well, when you're writing fiction, you control everything, and you can put elements of all the other types of writing in it. And I think even, of course, you could put nonfiction in fiction and pass it off as fiction. You can put, this, you could be very theatrical in your fiction. Um, and of course, having a poets, that's the height of everything, a poet, because it's so bare. You just have, you know, you could get away with what 17 syllables if you're writing haikus, and that's your poem. So I think, in terms of who's BSing the least, I think poets are. I think writing a poem, you're naked, whereas writing a novel, you're very clothed. You're very well clothed, and there's, people expect in a novel an ebb and flow, or the middle of it doesn't have to grip you, but the beginning, and if you end well, you have a good novel. I think short stories are the closest to poetry because you can't fool people with that. It's very bare. And I think with plays, I think I like that better than any of the other forms because it's up to someone else to interpret it, take it. And I was like, well, I didn't really hear it like that, or I didn't really see it being framed like that. But now that I see it, I said, oh, it's more flexible than I thought. So if you ask me what my favorite, I would say plays because there's nothing better than being entertained, just sit there and see what happens. But and then second, I'd say poetry, but I think I've published more fiction than anything else. So that's where I'm going with that.
That's great. It's funny because I have a theater background myself, and a lot of my writing, I'm very tuned into dialogue, and there's what you're talking about with somebody else, kind of collaborating with someone else, and that somehow you're starting something, and then someone else is taking it into a different place that is unexpected and surprising. It's really fun. I
Hmm.
have fun too.
Mhm.
So that's just it's just nice to I have a play that I'm going to have a couple of friends of mine. We're going to do a reading in the spring, and I'm so curious to see what they do with it. You're just reminding me that's a very particular thing to be a writer, but to have somebody else involved in the creative process. We don't really get to do that very often, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I know with poetry, a lot of times, just going to spoken word, I said, well, this person is really selling their work. Not saying that it's not good on the page, but I said they are really living it.
Yeah.
And, uh, you know, uh, poetry, what they go all the way back to the bards or, going to village and doing your performing your work. And I mean, that's probably the purest form. And seeing it on the page is pretty new. If you talk about all the human history of storytelling, but I think sometimes people forget that you have to entertain somehow. This is supposed to be entertaining.
Very important. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is fun. It's fun to entertain people.
Yeah, yeah, it is. But I guess sometimes it just makes me wonder. But you know, uh, you can't appeal to everybody,
Right.
and you take what you can and leave the rest. So.
Exactly. Just shifting gears a little bit because my podcast is all about the intersection of writing and relationships, and I'm just curious if there's a particular relationship that's alive for you right now and how that impacts your writing. You could speak to that. It could be
Hmm.
a relationship to anything. It could be, it doesn't have to be a person. It could be an experience or a quality or
Um,
anything.
Well, I've looked at the relationship to time because more and more I'm thinking, well, it seems like things that happened yesterday and they didn't happen yesterday. And, I said, oh, well, I guess I've gotten to that point where, I see things cyclical, then I don't see things cyclical. So, when it comes to especially a lot of the poems that I've written lately, they do seem like they're talking about um, truths that I used to have that, like a cold splash of water, I don't have anymore. And just the way I saw the world, and it is just time. It is just living, and even uh, relationships. I find that my relationships have gotten siphoned to a smaller pool of people. Whereas before, it's like I knew everybody. I didn't do it. But now I see, I'd rather have longer conversations with people that I really like than a lot of little conversations with people that, eh, I'm almost forcing the connection or whatever. And I think that is something that you learn um, as you get older and depth, I suppose. And that comes with time. And it's not necessarily that you see that time is fleeting. It's just that you sort of say, well, gosh, was that a concentrated experience that I had, or was that just something that was diverting? So I guess I'm looking more for a concentrated type of experiences and some sort of reality. So I think that has to do with my relationship to time. You know.
That's that's really fascinating because nobody has actually picked that in interviews and I've done, and it's so important. Like what you're saying is so important. It really resonates for me as I'm listening to you. It's a big thing, our relationship to time. Like it affects a lot of how we approach the world, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was talking to a friend of mine just the other day, and she doesn't have any sisters. I have a sister, and she always considers me her sister. And she was like, "It's just so good to hear your voice." And I said, "Well, I don't. I'm thinking I don't have a special, voice, but it's the time that we've spent together, and we were supposed to meet up, and just things got in the way." And then it's like, well, we'll definitely, meet up this weekend. And it's the idea that yeah, and whenever we meet up, it'll be like, we see each other every day. So I think some relationships have like a gravitas to it, and some gosh, you could talk to this person forever, and you never get closeness with them. So I do see that, and I think of also having the people that I've been very close to, and they move away or other circumstance. And I was like, I remember all the time, and sometimes there's framed in a time and a space, and sometimes they're totally different. Totally different. I have a totally different view of them and them of me. So it's interesting and in a lot of ways. And it's not necessarily a not necessarily a negative thing either. But
Yeah,
yeah.
just kind of is, right?
Hmm.
This is just a personal question. I'm always curious about, from a writing point of view, what makes a good relationship with an editor? Like if you think back on experiences that you've had with editors, like what 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 makes the positive ones positive?
Well, it's funny because I remember this is the first novel I had published. It seemed like the editor was very, very excited. And then I got the I guess the manuscript back, and it was all drawn up, and it was all like all almost it seemed like every line was, and I was like, well, that's interesting, but she seemed like she really liked it, and like the bigger notes and things like that. And I said, okay, now I sort of see how it's framed, and she's pulling out what she likes in it, and um I never thought of myself as a big writer. Like I'm just like covering the waterfront. I thought I was kind of crystallizing things, but there are other ways to even distill it even more. So, though it's daunting to see someone take your work and really, you know, really go at it, I think it's also quite welcoming. Now, I like the way you um, you wrote a letter and you introduced me to a poem that I didn't know. So I definitely I looked that up, and I really like that poem that you introduced me to. And then when I was saying, is this flash fiction? Because flash fiction is like it's a is it trendy, or is it? I know it's been around forever, but it's a trendier thing now. Now I see just calls just for that. So, I was saying, well, does this work as flash fiction? Does it seem like an incomplete short story? What is it? And you had answered that very succinctly. You'd asked about the title of my work, and usually people don't mess with the title. And I thought that was really, really bold that you did that, because it is true. And it's like, yeah, I'm not really married to that title. So I think that is good. And you definitely don't want to be compared to Ian Forrester if you don't have to be. So that's I thought that was good. I said it was just enough, but not too much to say, oh, what the heck? Why was this even accepted if you're going to change all this in it? So there's a happy balance, I think. And um, usually if it's something, if it's a poetry usually doesn't get edited. Like it's rare that I anyone ever edits poetry, but your longer short stories and novels definitely do. Flash fiction, I think this may be one of the few times that it has, that I have seen that. But it's good. It's always good to get feedback and instruction, and even if you don't necessarily agree, that somebody has a problem with with that thing right there that you put there. So that makes all the difference. And maybe you don't have to do exactly what the editor says, but you can do something because obviously there is something, some question mark or something there. Um, it's I think that's let me think. I know I've done some editing before, but yeah, I've that's not something I've necessarily done. Like long term or that was my, I've done guest editing and things like that. So I hand it to people who can do it because you do have to have confidence in your vision of their vision, which is a totally new vision at the end of all that. So it's a layered sort of thing.
Yeah, I was thinking of like how to help make the thing the best version of itself,
Sure.
not the best my version of itself. Like how do you
Hmm.
step out of the way and let the thing speak as loudly as it should, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. It's great to hear because we're kind of always learning. When we hear what works for writers, it kind of helps us keep our skills, improving. Tell us a little bit about your story in issue 5.1, which is currently called Room No Windows, but it might change. Just tell us.
Yeah. Needs to change that. It can't compete
Right.
with a room with a view. So that actually I was taking poems that I wrote and changing them to prose or adapting them to prose. I was just doing that. And this particular poem is I'm taking liberties, but there is some autobiographical notes to it. My father had Parkinson's disease, so he was the in and out of the hospital, especially towards the end. So that's the basis of the setting and some of the situation. But the other elements I add around the woman's just where she's at and all that. That's all added. Um, so when you're talking to someone who is maybe has some sort of consciousness of their mortality, or at least knows that they're in some sort of difficult situation, you don't know what to take, and you don't know what to say. You don't know. So I was trying to capture that, and I know that quite a few people go through anticipatory grief before someone passes. Um, you get the wishful thinking, you get the all of this, but I wanted to show someone in this sandwich generation, and how uh, this is dealt with. And I made her very solitary, not necessarily with other people that she could lean on. And that's sort of upping the stakes in things. But everything is flipped. The child is the parent, and the parent is a child. And I think also, my father, he really wanted to be a writer. He would always talk about stories, but he would never write anything down. That was the funny thing with him. And he was always telling me, just take dictation, take down what I say, and then you'll be a great writer. And I just thought that was funny. So some of it I just did. Yeah, I thought of him, but the situation is, there's a lot of fiction with it, and the woman is I don't see that as a depiction of me, but the situation is you're visiting someone, you're not in control of this situation, and everything's playing at once, the past, the present, and then you have like these foreign, you're in a foreign setting, you don't want to be there, but you have to be there. Is it working or is it just playing itself out? You know. So I hope I captured that in a flash form.
You
'Cause that's,
totally captured it magnificently. I was riveted.
oh,
I am terrible I can't lie about anything. I was riveted from the first word to the end the entire time.
hmm.
It
Well,
was
thank you.
beautiful and emotional. And I'm actually caring for my elderly mom. Um,
Oh,
so I'm going through that if she's been in a nursing home for the last year. And so I go every month. I mean, I'm not like there all the time because I live in a different country and everything, but like just that experience of switching roles and becoming kind of the parental figure and how that is so strange. And there was just a lot that I related to. I mean, it was a very different situation. My grandfather had Parkinson's. There was just so much. I love you have a very poetic voice. So I was not surprised to learn that you write poetry, but your sense of narrative is so strong that I'm not I'm not like a poetry person by nature. I need the story, I need the narrative, I need the like beginning, middle, and end. So it's like I feel like I got the best of both worlds in that, and just such the emotion part. It was so deep, and it was such a personally fulfilling reading experience for me. So
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I like doing, what is it, everyday, well, I don't know if you want to call her a hero, but everyday situations. And it's just like I don't know. I have to talk about Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. I remember talking to someone even before my father was diagnosed, and it was like Alzheimer's is the luckiest disease you can because you don't know you have. But if you have something like Parkinson's, you definitely, you're with it, but you're just little by little, it just, all encompassing, and sad. And just going to the hospital is sad. Uh, Going to the nursing home, just that word, the nursing home. I don't know. Just some of these things are maybe we could think of a different thing to call it. Maybe that would make us feel better. But um, again, I hope your mother um, gets better or is enjoying herself in the nursing home, because
That is a long story. It was the long tragic story. But I actually I'm an essayist as well as a fiction writer.
oh,
I just had an essay, a braided essay that I wrote about the experience of our relationship changing. It was accepted to an anthology, so I'm happy about that. But just we're gonna wrap things up a little bit. Where can we find more of your work if readers are interested in checking out more of your writing?
well, I have
I'll put some links in this, but you can tell us as well.
oh, okay. Well, this book I have here is They Were Horrible Cooks, and that is my collection of poetry, sort of like a best of. The poetry spans, oh gosh, very, very early to present. So I'm very happy about that. And then I have about is it 7 or 8 novels on, Amazon or, Barnes and Noble or, whomever. You definitely can, look that up. I have some plays that are going to be performed this year, so I'm really happy about that. So I know they're going to have a couple of readings, and then there's going to be a run of it in 2027, which sounds futuristic, but is only next year. So, I have a lot of balls in the air. I don't have a website, but if you just look up my name, you'll find tons of things that I'm doing here and there. Um, so, I have a lot of poems. I have a lot of play. I don't have essays though. So, you're Gail, you definitely, if you have that art, that's great because I find it very difficult to write essays.
Oh, it's
Um,
so funny. I look at people who write poetry and I think that is the hardest, most like it takes such skill. I mean, to me, an essay is so easy. It's like it's
hmm.
nothing. But poetry, my God, I have such respect for poets. It just feels like nothing I could ever do.
I don't know about that, but I think an essayist, because that's pretty bare. You don't even, you can't even, you know make up things with it. It is what actually happened, and it's your viewpoint, your voice, all of that. So I think that's great. But yeah, I'm like constantly, I'm back on the horse, meaning I'm producing a lot of things, whereas a few years ago, I really wasn't doing much, but I was involved a lot in other things. So now I've gone sort of, as I said, full circle. I'm back to you know, writing a lot.
Well, we're the richer for it, us readers.
Oh,
Just one last question, then we'll wrap up. But if you had one piece of advice to impart to other writers, because we have people that follow me anyway, are mostly writers, what would that piece of advice be?
I would say listen to everything, but believe nothing. I don't know. I'm like, I think it's good to hear everyone's viewpoint, but it's also good to know where those viewpoints are coming, and just, sort of be be yourself. Try to be uh, true to yourself and write something that you'd actually want to read. Because um, I think that makes all the difference. If you At least you made one person happy if you write things that you actually like yourself. So and some people say, well, you have to write every day and you have to this, you have to that. It's like whenever you feel like meeting the page, meet the page. And as I said, I went a few years without writing anything. So, you know, uh, it's like riding a horse, I suppose.
It's great. Thank you so much, Allison. It's been
Thank you,
totally
Gail.
pleasurable chatting with you. And we're looking forward to seeing your piece out in the issue when it comes out in April.
Well, thank you, and thanks for the time. And you're a great host.
Thanks.